Hello, welcome. I am going to start us off actually by asking everybody to introduce themselves. It's got another mic on the end over here, so we can go ahead and pass it around. But yes, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
My name is Aaron Johnson. We're here from South Minneapolis, director of Revolutionary Chic.
Hi, I'm Jennie. I'm star of Revolutionary Chic, and I run the People's Closet in George Floyd Square, the longest held protest in American history.
Hi, my name is Najeeah. I am the writer and director of HAG. I am from South Carolina.
Hey, I'm Cameron Logan. I'm the producer of HAG, and I'm from Arlington, Virginia.
Well, thank you all so much for joining me here today. For the audience, I'm going to give you a little background on what I'm hoping this discussion is going to be. And we'll also have some time at the end for Q&A. So if you have any questions, hold on to them. And I'm excited to hear them and to hear what our panelists have to say. But basically, we think that speculative storytelling in film is such an incredible way of understanding the world as it is, of understanding the world as it could be, of giving us visions for what that can look like. And in this panel, we have a wonderful and brilliant group of filmmakers who are helping us do that work of envisioning through a lot of different lenses. And we want to discuss how their films came to life and the role that their work can play in shaping our visions of what is possible. So we're gonna be talking about how imagination can help us, disrupt the status quo, and also just getting into their films and what drives them and what led us to this wonderful time that we're having here today. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started by asking a kind of broad question. Feel free to take it wherever you'd like to take it. But right now, right this moment, what is it like to be you?
Pretty great for the most part. Yeah, obviously with anyone, plenty of ups and downs. But I think of myself as an optimist, and whenever you're down, you're always gonna get back up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think right now I'm good. I'm tired, but I'm good, and I think the ability to keep going is always a cool thing to have,
Yeah, it's an interesting time being me. That's definitely true. A lot of, like you say, ups and downs, but like everyone says, very hopeful for the future and the things I've seen, particularly just not even about it, but around the world, of just reminding us that, our ancestors fought greater battles than we have and came back, and we are living their wildest dreams right now. So to be me is a blessing, to see all the things I can see that people who look like me never got the chance to do.
I have kind of a wild story that doesn't really fit in this, but I very shortly was told I would never walk again like 5 years ago. And I'm here in Michigan with all of you. And that's such an amazing thing. I actually pretty much retaught myself how to walk without access to physical therapy because of the pandemic, and my neighborhood where I grew up was burning down. And thank you all, I appreciate you. So, whatever it is, we all go through hard stuff, and I'm no exception, but just very grateful. Every day I'm thankful.
Thank you all so much for sharing. And I think along those same lines, we all got to see some of your incredible art here. And I think that sometimes when we're in these kinds of film spaces, we focus on how audiences can respond to the films that we've just seen. But I'm really curious, as you were in the room watching the films that you made, how did you feel? Like, what feelings came up for you? What memories does watching your piece bring up?
I guess I'm sold in this a lot. Well, a lot of emotions, also that I mentioned, like I grew up in the area that is now George Floyd Square. It's like even just seeing it and being here and sharing a part of the story of that, and to an audience that maybe has never had an opportunity to visit, that to me was almost more, I was watching that more than even thinking about in that context of like my film. So, I just love sharing the story of that and bringing our community to more people.
Your town.
Floyd Town to your town.
How do we feel, Cam? I think it's almost nerve-wracking. This film is still in festival right now. It's running the gamut through the country, and it's been very interesting trying to explain how I grew up to other people. There's been multiple occasions where I'll go to a Q&A or I'll leave a screening of my film and they'll go, "Is that real?" And it's interesting to have to explain my experience when I've given my experience, and it's exciting to be able to put vision to the stories I grew up with and the culture that I have following me.
Yeah, just for me, I just feel so proud watching it. I mean, I really put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. Oh, for sure, for sure. But the final product is spectacular. I'm always really excited to see everybody's reactions. Also, that being said, I'm very much self-critical, and so I'll watch through it and I'll find, oh, there's a little piece of fuzz in her hair in that scene. Like, we could have done this edit a little better, a little faster. But overall, just very proud.
Thank you. That was interesting. I saw some nods when you said that you were very self-critical. I can say that as someone watching the films, I did not go in those places at all. I was just completely enraptured by the work that you put together. So thank you. And following up on that, I'd love if you could share a little bit about what drives you as filmmakers, what led you to want to create this work for us or for yourselves. I don't know. Who is it for? Sorry, that was like 17 questions. Sorry.
You want to answer any, or do you want me to just go for it for us? Oh, on behalf. Yeah, okay. Just a little quick, for me, I didn't start as a filmmaker. I have an undergrad in theater, and I got my MFA in film from Howard. And Kim and I are recent graduates of the Howard University's MFA film program. And something I quickly learned leaving theater and coming into film is, though I'll always love the world of the theater strips everything away from you that's not what's expected of the Great White Way. So I spent a lot of my time running away from who I was as a Southern woman, a very country girl, a queer woman, as a Black woman in the US. And when I got to Howard, something I learned really quickly and so ingrained in us in that program is this idea of Sankofa: to move forward, you must look back. And I think what I've learned in making my films is, if I'm telling my story, I'm telling all of our stories. There's a universality to being so specific. I think even though most people may not have come in this room knowing what being Geechee is or what Gullah Geechee culture is, there is a level of community and a level of shared experience that can be sent forward. So I think the reason I make films, to get to the actual question, is I don't want to be forgotten. I don't want to be forgotten, not just me as the royal, I don't want me, what I was raised with, the community I have behind me, the people who have built me into who I am. I don't want that to be lost. And I think being able to, especially with Gullah Geechee, a lot of that work is oral tradition. It's a story someone told someone and someone told someone else, and then it gets to you. There are very few stories written about the Buhag and about Gullah Geechee folklore and culture, and I want to have it written down, have it somewhere solid so that someone can look back, who knows how long from now, and be like, oh, there's this thing from further back, and it keeps going forward. So that's probably why I do it.
Could you just rephrase the question? I
absolutely can, yes.
I kind of know it.
Yeah, so what led you to make this film?
Thank you. I mentioned kind of part of my story that I was during the pandemic, like in isolation, and during that time, George Floyd was murdered in front of a store that I grew up going to, and I spent a lot of time, kind of effectively unable to move really that much. Anyways, and listening to my neighborhood just being destroyed through my walls, and then watching live streams, a unicorn ride in different streams of my community. That was really how I was experiencing my community in real time. And I just grew this passion for wanting to share people's voices in a very raw, unedited, direct way that wasn't filtered by maybe like sponsors that are, news agencies depend on. I just really wanted to get into a documentary aspect. And once I finally was like vaccinated and everything, it was around the time that Dante Wright had gotten murdered. And I came out swinging, and I was just recording everything with my phone. One thing led to another, and I was able to raise money to get like a real camera. And ever since then, I've just been obsessed with telling the stories of my community that are often unheard. So like a formal like flashpoint of why did this movie come about was actually a one-day doc competition. I had to film everything within 24 hours. So that was made, I filmed that in 24 hours and edited it in 24 hours. And thank you. And but there was no story that I just, that screamed to me the subject that I wanted to choose. And I know Jennie just from the streets and community, and yeah, that's just kind of how it all came together.
We outside.
And by the way, we're still outside.
We are still outside. 5 years. Rise and remember. 5th year anniversary coming up May 25th.
Yeah, thank you all so much for speaking of that. And the Distant Planet Project, we're thinking a lot with futurity. We're thinking a lot with Afrofuturism, with the speculative. And I know that Jennie, you mentioned Afrofuturism as an influence in the work that you do as a designer and as a community organizer. I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about what that means for you.
If we're going, Afrofuturism is ultimately what inspired me to go to fashion school and pursue that thing after, because kind of similar to when I was 18, I was diagnosed with cancer. And I wasn't allowed to go to college on time, and I had to really kind of put my life on hold. And it's interesting, this one bookstore that ultimately did burn down during the uprising, but got built up again and is reopened. And the owner was like, "Hey, I have no ill will towards anybody. I'm happy." He's like, "Hey, I will rebuild." So luckily, I just remember as a kid, in the neighborhood, my mom would always go get her nails done at this one particular nail shop, and I would walk down the street to the bookstore, Uncle Hugo's, and I got this book on Afrofuturism, and just the history and everything about it just always inspired me to shoot for more and follow my dreams and remind myself that my culture, and I don't need to water down myself or my Blackness for anything. But it's sort of like Afrofuturism, and the work that I do specifically comes from just the work of the square itself. We call it the living memorial because people still come from all over the world to lay down offerings and to come see, because the point of Afrofuturism is about taking the past and bringing it with you to the future. And that's sort of the whole point of the square, of why we still stand, why I still keep the closet free and in the circle, because we do it because it's about helping the people keep the narrative. This was our story. We kept our streets safe. We shut things down. We fed each other. We have clothed each other. We meet every day, twice a day, at an abandoned gas station to talk about the 24 demands of Justice Revolution 001, if you want to look them up. We are still very much in active protest and in negotiations with the city to talk about, because we're here for all stolen and exploited lives. And the reality is no one's going to care for your neighborhood the way that you will. No one's going to care for your community the way that you can. We have a saying at the square, it's called "Bring your gifts to the movement." Bring your gifts to the square. Because I showed up on the first days of the protest thinking I gotta be at every protest, front lines, doing it all. Typical, I say this year, I'm a recovering strong Black woman right now. And I'm in that area. because in that time period, it's all about holding on to the narrative to remind ourselves of what the people built, of what the people do, and that goes on throughout history. People want to just take the narrative, like the city or like the powers that be would love to have the more, they just take the square and have a like you can go buy your cute little keychains at a nice little coffee shop next to it, and they could create a little side panel of names on the streets that they can add on to it and call it a day. And we're saying, no, absolutely not. You do not get to go back to business as usual. You do not get to you do not get to order forget that we had like tanks rolling down our streets, that they put our entire community on a curfew to where we were literally getting shot at with rubber bullets on our own porches. That when I was going to and from school, I was getting stopped by National Guard members asking me, where are you going? What are you doing? And things like that. When we look at, like, just politically, you look at the world now, things going on in Gaza or Palestine and all, like, you are just, remember, you're just one act of civil disobedience away from becoming a genocide, of being in an occupation, and how quickly, like, they'll just strip your rights as a person away and then expect you to just go the powers that be. It's like you don't get to declare war on your own citizens and then decide that and then tell us what time frame we have to get over it. And that's true. And so, like I said, I didn't know what to do, but I could make clothes. I was in fashion school and I knew how to maintain textiles in an outdoor forest. And then before I do it, and like 5 years later, that closet still stands. People still use it every day, and people clean it up. Like, people will come drop things off, and then another person will come clean things up. I had the day we filmed it was actually the day we filmed it was the day after the election. Yeah, moment of silence. And I remember a woman, she came with her daughter that day, and I was like, oh, what brings you here? She's like, oh, we try to come at least once a week whenever we're going through our laundry, if we're gonna drop stuff off, or maybe we'll clean stuff up, and if we see any cool toys, I make sure that she's able to grab one. And it's just knowing that this closet is a part of, like, some mother and her daughter's everyday thing. What I think of going through with my granny was like one of the main things of my childhood that I look back to, and the fact that I'm giving that to somebody else is another thing of reminding ourselves of, like, what you wear and the things that and the clothes you put on your body matter, and they're a part of your story. We say at the People's Closet, fashion is culture, and culture is meant to be passed down and around. And knowing that, like, this jacket came from the People's Closet, to think that somebody didn't want this anymore, it's like, excuse you. But instead of just hoarding onto it or thinking that, oh, I could probably sell this or monetize on it, they're like, no, I'm going to give this so somebody else can have a moment of life. And it connects us. Like I say, people love it. And also, like, when you create something just for community, you find that people respect it more. Like, people will, like, I know, like, you'll go to places, there'll be trash and stuff all over bus shelters, and, like, the city won't do anything to clean it up. But if something breaks up my closet, people are out their house in like 10 minutes coming to clean it up, bringing out their own things. Like, people spend time building up the boards. It's just a matter of, taking ownership and, like, collective action of, actually, too often than not, we believe, well, that belongs to the city, or that belongs to this person, or that's this. It's like, well, no, this is our community, our place, and even when it's a mess, it's still ours, So, yeah, I feel like I've just taken up too much time here.
I really appreciate everything that you shared, because you really painted a picture not just about Afrofuturism as a cultural and artistic movement, but really the social function that it plays, right? In connecting us with the past and, like, rooting us in the present, and also helping us think about the future. And it reminded me of something that you were saying, Jay, and also yourself, Cameron. You mentioned Sankofa, this idea of looking back in order to go forward. And so I would love it if you could speak a little bit about why that's important. You can use the lens of your film, Han, because you clearly did that. But just in general, like, why is that important for us to be doing in this moment?
Do you have any thoughts? I'd like to, like, pull some more things together before I start speaking.
Yeah, a few thoughts. I think it's important to look back before you go forward, because, I mean, I think it's about knowing who you are and where you come from, and kind of what Jay was saying earlier. Just putting your community out there, your perspective, for it not to be forgotten. You were here and you were important, and that means something. Yeah.
Okay, I think I have some words now, y'all. My bad. I think one thing that I gained, not only from doing this film and being at Howard and doing the work that I do, not only as a theater maker, but as an artist, artist activist in general, is history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. So often we forget that things will happen in a similar way and we won't notice it till it's far too late. So allowing ourselves to honor and look back at what we've already done can help us move forward in what we can do, again, what we can change, what we can add to. Trying to build from scratch, I think, is a waste. Everything is built upon something else. And how you see it, everything is built upon something else, and being able to honor the shoulders you're standing on and still stand upon them to make something bigger makes it worth it. I think looking back at HAG, one of the blessings about that is I've been in multiple, Cam and I've been in multiple festivals where you would think they know exactly what the story would be about. Like, the Gullah Geechee community is the Sea Islands of South Carolina and Georgia. We were in Atlanta and we were at this festival talking about the story, and so many people were like, had never heard of that before, which shocked me because everybody knows, like, if I'm home, everybody knows what I'm talking about as soon as I say it. And the idea of that being forgotten scares me. The idea of, like, being forgotten and not having a legacy behind you, not just you as the person, but you as a community, you as the people that have raised and cultivated what is, that's terrifying to me. And I think being able to be one of the bricks that builds that, that sturdy, like, foundation, I think is really important.
And a follow-up, or I guess not to what you specifically said, but to several things that you've all spoken to, is this idea that you're using your films to give a message that is specific. It's specific to a people, to a culture, to a moment, to a fight, but it's also speaking to our broader stories, right? To what we can achieve in community. And so could you speak to what the future is that you are envisioning, that you are building towards through your films? And yeah, what is this future that we're working towards?
Okay.
Go on.
Thank you. What is the future I'm building towards? You know, I think about, look at the state of affairs that we're all witnessing worldwide, locally even. My dad is from Michigan, so I've seen the systemic destruction of the Rust Belt, you know, through his lens before I was even born, through his stories. And obviously being from the area that is now George Floyd Square, like, I've seen what can really happen in a very short amount of time, and in terms of destruction and rebuilding, and what does rebuilding look like. And to me, I always just wanted to make videos that, you know, things like George Floyd Square is very controversial, or Heidelberg in Detroit is, like, very controversial, that people in, like, affluent suburbs, they experience it through the media, or they experience it secondhand, one way or another. And those people are not going to come to Heidelberg or George Floyd Square. Or I'm filming a documentary about unhoused encampments. They're not going to come into unhoused encampments. But because I have access to a lot of those areas, I kind of know how to speak the language, so to speak. Like, I can bring my camera to places, and I have a unique level of trust that I've built, that I'm able to access, like, very honest views, and I'm able to bring the fact that I've got this showing here in Michigan is a point. Like, I want to bring the spaces I'm in to places where people might not otherwise have access to them, and I want to have access to these messages. So I really just, my hope for my films is, I'd like to start conversations, because when we there's so much division right now, right? And it's all like divide and conquer, right? Like it's all coming from a certain place. It's like right versus left, or they have like leftist versus liberals, or then within that there's racial stuff, and then within civil rights, like there might be ableism, or you know what I'm saying? It's like so broken down. So the more we're able to have conversations and the more we're able to experience other perspectives. Sorry, sidebar. I learned something from the Native community. There's a Lakota saying, and I'm gonna paraphrase it, but essentially it's saying like, imagine if you put an object in the center of like a circle of people. Every single person is gonna have a slightly different description of that object, including people on the opposite sides from that same object in a circle. They're gonna have a completely opposite description of what that object looks like. But if you take down each description, you'll have a full, complete idea of what that object looks like. So that's kind of what I think, like the more we can experience other perspectives and the more we can become educated about the topics that we care about, the more we can have conversations, the more we can not react with emotions, but rather like provide this description of the object to somebody from the other side and go, oh, hey, it's an apple and not a circle or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But that's my hope with my films.
I'm not like a filmmaker, I'm a fashion designer and I run a future closet, but I guess from talking specifically about my work is I'm trying to push to a world where scarcity mindset is no longer a thing. To remind ourselves, scarcity mindset is the root of white supremacy, of this idea that only a certain amount of things exist, like you said, and if we don't grab it and take it for ourselves, we'll never get it again. And what I've learned with people, like some people tell me, oh, I feel awful taking from the closet. Aren't there people who need it more? And it's like, do you know how many pairs of pants I've folded in 5 years? Like, there's more than enough to go around. And when we look at that, instead of looking at it as like, well, if you have it, then I don't. And the reality is like, well, no, none of us have to do without. And that's what they want us to believe. And that's the tools that they use, like you say, to divide and conquer this idea. Like even in spaces that are meant to be for liberation, it's like, well, no, I remember this one quote off topic, but it's about Tyra Banks. She talked about how she was gonna perform at this really elite fashion show, but then she said, "Oh, I got cut last minute because of like Naomi Campbell showed up," and everyone's all like, "Oh, that sucks that you got kicked out." But I'm like, why would? And they want to think about like, oh, she handled it with so much grace, but she handled it with so much grace that she walked away. She let that other woman shine. I'm like, why did they only need one black woman performer its entire show? Why were you the first one to go when you were also pretty famous at the time too? It's again this idea of always putting people and people of color against each other. And that's just kind of what I'm fighting about. There's no reason that we all can't be thriving and doing well. They need the reason houselessness exists is to keep like the middle class in line. Remind yourself, hey, act right, go to that shitty job that doesn't give you health insurance or pay you a livable wage and you're still living with like 7 roommates and you're 33, but hey, you're not that homeless guy on the street. So like, nah.
I feel like we should go to the next question. I think she got the answer down.
Should I repeat the question or would you? Yes, absolutely. I would love to hear, Jay, what is this future that we're fighting towards? What is the future that you see that we can get to?
Okay, so follow me, y'all, right?
Yes.
Outside of my filmmaking, I am a theater of the oppressed and pedagogy of the oppressed practitioner. So one thing that's always stuck with me in that work is that we are, as a people, always in rehearsal for the revolution. So that idea of being able to prepare for not a reset, but a rebirth of who it is and who we are as people, I think is really important. Being able to, as I said in the last question, add on to what we already have and make something that is equitable and sustainable for all community is so vital to me. And it's so interesting when like Cam and I talk about this a lot. Even in this small like microcosm of like talking about film. I'm covering a lot of bases. I'm Black, I'm from the South, I'm queer, I'm a woman. There's so much there, you know? And being able to be any and all and not just one piece of myself, I think is really vital to everyone, and being able to exist that way without stipulation, I suppose, is something I really want to impose upon the world, and that's how I'd like for things to move if I got what I want, you know.
I love that. And I love that phrasing of what you just used of imposing that upon the world. It reminds me of this quote from Lorraine. It's very about like imposing beauty on the future. And I just heard some of that in what you all have shared actually. So thank you so much. I think we've got about 4 minutes. I'm gonna open it up to the audience. Yes.
So I think, and this is like for Jennie in particular, but I'd love to hear any other perspectives on it too. First of all, thank you for what you've been doing. I feel like there's a through line from George Floyd Square to the Palestine solidarity encampments, both in the demarcation of a space for revolution, but then also the mutual aid practices that have come with it. Like, you know, I helped out with the one at MSU a little. I visited the one at U of M, and you know, not only saw like the tents and everything, but people bringing food and, you know, even clothes and a lot of books too. And, you know, I feel like part of that evolution is like mutual aid as a practice being cultivated. And I was wondering if you had thoughts on, you know, what you've learned over the last couple of years, sharing in brief of like how you've learned how to cultivate that better and bring people into the fold, or, you know, how to share with folks here today, like if they're thinking like, oh, I want to help serve that niche in my community now, or when that kind of next like revolutionary moment happens, and it will, given the circumstances we're in, how they can, you know, prepare for that and cultivate that, you know, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. It's a wonderful question. Thank you so much. Yes. Oh, that's a good one. I think right now when we tell people, it's a matter of, well, it's a matter of like getting to know your communities and like, what is it that you consistently see a need for? Like, if you see a need, what is it? Like you say, like when people are like sleeping outside, people don't, there's blankets that can bring warmth, but there's also other ways, because everybody wants to assume that like, well, I can't provide somebody housing, so therefore I can't be helpful. It's like, well, it's like, well, honey, do you have a dryer that you can collect lint from to help start fires for people that have to stay outside? That's something simple and free that you could do. It's a matter of, like, when it comes to mutual aid, like I always say, like I run a mutual aid thing, but people want to call it a charity thing. And that's the difference. When you're focusing on mutual aid, it's about taking what abundance you have or have access to and making sure that you can spread it around evenly and actually get it to the people instead of just scraping whatever scraps or returning left over and then tossing about whoever you feel most bad about. What I'm saying is really get to know your community and your neighbors, because that's really what's going to help you out in reminding yourself of, you know, the person who you live next to, who you may not talk to a lot. You have a lot more in common with them than you think. Like I say, we're at the square, we meet every day, twice a day. Morning meetings at 8 a.m. at an abandoned gas station. We have coffee, we talk to each other, we see what's going on. Oh, you have surgery this week, what do you need? Like setting up meal plans for people, or people need rides places. We'll say, oh, what's that? Like, you never really know what it is you can bring it to you're actually in the fold. So everybody thinks I need to come prepared to just hand something out. It's like, no, if you just show up and kind of like get it where you fit in. That's the thing I recommend right now. I recommend going to the places that you feel scared or that you don't feel like you have a lot to offer, because sometimes, like even like we say, like with like a 612 MASH, which was born out of the revolution started by wonderful Kia Bible. 612 MASH, for those who don't know, it was a group of medics who would come to the square completely of their own free time, like nurses and practitioners who would come, because when the streets were closed down during the uprising, ambulances were not coming through. Police ambulances, you would call, they wouldn't show up, and so as
Blocking ambulances in some cases.
well, they were. Yeah, straight up, the police were like, oh, you can't come through, and they called it like a no-go zone. And so people were afraid to come in. And so in that note, like Kia, who had never done anything like this before, showed up and she organized a lot of the medics to come in, and they would just show up at times, like they had nothing else to offer, like, oh, here's a stethoscope, but they would offer Narcan training or first aid training. And in fact, people were calling 612 MASH before they were calling 911 because the response times were actually better. And people would come in, and it got to the point where people were taking, and I know some people had to like went around saving people's lives because they would show up and they would be covering up the bleeding from a bullet wound, and then they would drive them themselves and drop them off at HTFC. And also, it's a matter of because people would come just with no expectations. You're just like, hey, what can I give? Or I remember sitting at the barricade and watching this one guy. He came out with he had a wagon and just a bunch of his bag, a bag and a bunch of snacks, and just walking around handing them out to people. Or when I think of the people who were just would just bring snacks, like, oh, here's some water, here's some sunscreen, or things that people don't think about. Like everyone thinks, oh, we gotta go to the front lines. It's like, well, does everybody have water? Just the person who brings the water, who brings the coffee in the morning, who makes sure that everyone has like the right shoes and things like that. A matter of like in these times of mutual aid and like as a community, it's a matter of reminding yourselves that we can't be dependent on the powers that be always, because how quickly, because I remember during the uprising, like when after like the first Target burnt down, like all the stores who stayed open during every day of the pandemic, not caring about their employees' health and during those times, but one building burnt down and they were all shut down. I remember even the pharmacies were shut down. I couldn't get my inhaler, but other people in the community sat there and say, oh, people are getting access to inhalers. So they went and they got a bunch and they were giving them out. I know some people who drove all the way to Wisconsin and North Dakota out of state to go to grocery stores to get, like, during the uprising, like, the square, that's where I got my groceries. That's where I was able to, like, people were dropping off bread, food, baby formula, things, and also people were doing drop-offs. They were having entire things like, well, I don't have a lot, but I have a car, so I can go and drop off little care packages all around the city to make sure people have what they need. Because, like I said, like, how quickly things can change and how much you can lose access to certain things, but obviously we still need them. It's still, so yeah, it's a lot, but in these moments I recommend, like, whatever it is that you like to do. Like some people, like if you just like to bake, offering baked goods at an event, that's very helpful, or to start out. Or if you like to mend things, like we do mending circles, people come and they'll fix up dry, or there's people who come and give haircuts at times. Or if you just have to, like, I don't know, it's complicated, but it's a matter of just reminding yourself of how people want everything to be so daunting. Like, oh God, I can't fix the whole problem, therefore I might not even try it. It's like, we're not gonna solve all white supremacy in an afternoon, unfortunately, as much as people would have loved for those 2 weeks of uprisings to have fixed all the problems. It doesn't. It takes a lot of time and effort in showing up and seeing the humanity of all the people around us. To remind yourself, you have so much more in common with that homeless guy on the street that you think. It's like the stories I've witnessed just by actually being able just to sit down and get to know people and their whole stories of like how they ended up homeless. Like, have you ever thought of that? Because I know a woman who said, why are you on the street with her kids? She said, oh, I had a place not too long ago, but my landlord misput my apartment down for an eviction notice instead of my other one. And even though I've gotten expunged, I haven't been able to apply for a new place with me and my kids ever since. You know that?
Can I just add?
Yeah, you can add on to it.
Thanks. I just like a quick thought to add to this too. I heard you say something that like is basically to the extent of a lot of people come to this like mutual aid and how we're gonna like kind of curve, a situation to be like more community oriented. And it's this feeling of like I've tried nothing and I'm all out of ideas. And it's like part of really the way George Floyd Square started. I mean, it was gonna probably become George Floyd Square anyways, but like just the way that it went down is Janelle Austin. She was just going around picking up garbage because there was so many people coming from all over the place. And there were, there wasn't, there's like a city garbage can on one corner or something, and there's like 40,000 people, right? So it's like, she was just picking up garbage, and in doing that, she started talking to other community members that were also picking up garbage. And so like that's something you can do. You see like a messy corner, you don't have to fill out an application to just come through with a broom. Like that's something you can do that will immediately make a difference. And if somebody sees you and like, hey, like you're not getting paid to do this, why are you doing this? You go, oh, because I believe in making a change, and now you two are talking, and who knows what you're gonna come up with after that. And so like the other thing is too, like people like think about like if you've ever applied for a job or different like tiers of careers, like people will come up with so much imagination. They'll come up with references who aren't even real. They'll have like every idea of like, I did this job, I did that. But then like, so y'all are creative. I'm just saying this to the world, not anyone directly, but like you can come up with ideas. Like I have a passion for video. I bring my video to the streets. You said something earlier, bring your gifts to the square or bring to the movement, you know? Those are all things that y'all can do. You don't have to plan something in a year from now. It doesn't have to have funding. In fact, if there's no funding, that's better because you don't have to appease to anyone. Like you don't have to please nobody.
You have to like justify why.
You're just doing it for you. And that's what's gonna get things done.
Thank you so much for speaking of that. Our lovely panelists. But thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. So